Hi, folks. Thanks for watching my monologue. As you may have heard, there's been a recent run on guns and ammunition. I just wanted to let you know that Guns Etc. is in a 10,200 square foot building which holds a lot of guns. So Guns Etc. is open and has a lot of product. Or you can go to gunsetcetera.com. That's gunsetc.com. And if you like my monologue... Well, welcome back. Thursday, April 2nd, 2020. I was interviewed yesterday by Rod Arquette, a radio host in the Salt Lake City area of Utah, and I got a lot of emails about it. And people said that it was a very good interview. You're used to hearing me interview others. They suggested, many of them, that I air this interview of me being questioned on my views of where we are right now with regard to the coronavirus. And with the help of my producer, Bill, we will give you Rod Arquette from Salt Lake area radio interview of me. We'll be right back with you live in a moment.
There was a great article the other day with William J. Bennett, former education secretary, and my next guest, his name is Seth Liebson, who is a radio host down in Phoenix area. They wrote this article about it's time for a second opinion. And Seth is joining us on our newsmaker line right now. Being given what's going on right now, Seth, why do you think it is so important that we do, in fact, get a second opinion on all of this?
Yeah, everyone is basically attuned to asking their doctors opinions about their health care, about their medical care. They're the experts. Right now, when you tune into cable television, there are two doctors who work side by side with President Trump and in the Trump administration who we take a lot of information from and a lot of cues from, Anthony Fauci, of course, and Deborah Birx. And then we have, CNN, Fox News, MSNBC. They have their panel of doctors, most of whom are epidemiologists, not all. But when you talk to your personal doctors, as I'm finding, I'm in the same business you're in, as my listeners are finding, they're saying, not so sure. When you look at their numbers, not so sure. We, in 3 weeks, have surrendered an awful lot in this country based on numbers Fauci and Birx and other so-called experts have given us that are all over the map. We went from 2 million deaths to 200,000 deaths in the course of the experts' opinions in the course of 2 weeks. And we're making dramatic changes to our lives and our country that I think will be more than temporary based on incomplete data. So I think we really need to start thinking about other kinds of expertise and other kinds of solutions rather than shutting down the country and treating Utah, for example, the same way we're treating New York.
Well, and Seth, thank you for pointing that out, and I'll get to that in a minute. But you and Bill Bennett, in this wonderful article in Real Clear Politics, write about that each death is a tragedy and horrible. We all agree with that. But nobody ever asked them, are those really small numbers? Because in the overall scheme of things, the people who are dying from this, these are very small numbers if you look and compare it to the population of the United States.
And it's a conversation we feel so uncomfortable having, isn't it,
Oh, sure.
Rod?
Yeah, it is.
Right. But the truth of the matter is we have waged wars on a lot of things. Suicide, drugs, very famously. And do you know what the toll of deaths due to drugs was last year? 67,000. We lost 67,000 Americans to drug overdose. That's not including, accidents and other injuries that come ancillary to overdose, just in overdose. That we celebrated because the year before it was 70,000. Now we are talking about solutions, self-isolation, containment, quarantines, that all of our social science research tells us is a major driver of alcohol abuse, drug abuse, domestic violence, depression, suicide. When we talk about cures worse than the disease, I don't think we have any grasp of what we're doing to this country right now on the social policy front with regard to those kinds of other endemics we said we've waged war on, and we did nothing like that for those things. Let me add a further complicating part here, Rod, if I might. I'm in Phoenix. I chair one of the state's more prominent substance abuse prevention organizations. This is gala season in Arizona. This is where every nonprofit between basically December and May does their annual galas, which for those nonprofits like mine, it's half or more of their annual revenue. These nonprofits geared towards helping suicide prevention, depression, alcohol abuse, drug abuse, you name it, treatment, we've just taken half of their money away. So we are looking at some real serious double whammies with the quote-unquote cures for a disease we don't know what is.
Yeah. How did we surrender so fast, Seth? I mean, the speed of this, in a matter of weeks, we have just basically surrendered all of our freedoms and our ability to handle this. How did that happen so fast?
Well, the theory Bill and I have, and we write in our op-ed you were kind enough to mention in Real Clear Politics today, the theory we have is that rhetoric has become so extreme in this country since the election, never mind inauguration of Donald Trump. Everything he does is redolent of Nazi Germany. He's a Hitler. He's a worse than Hitler. He's a Nazi. He's going to lead the world into a global recession. He's an existential threat to our Constitution. This before anyone even knew what Wuhan was or where it was or what, social isolation meant. So we have been trained here in this country through our cultural rhetoric to want to believe the worst, And I think that when you add that to a media that, when it leads, and the chyrons with these numbers is, viewer juice and viewer opium for them, I think you create a situation where people are put into paranoid panic. And it's unhealthy for this democracy.
It sure is. How do we restore some of the calm and normalcy? Seth, what is it going to take?
It's a great question. We used to have a saying that calm is a language the blind can read and the deaf can hear. And I think everyone needs to tone down the most extreme forms of rhetoric that they have made the coin of the realm. So when Joe Biden talks about the president as an existential threat to America and yet parades himself around as someone who is, the moderate who can work with both sides, he really needs to take a serious look at what that kind of rhetoric means. I think a lot of the responsibility is with the editorial pages and the major newspapers and the cable networks, and I'm not exempting Drudge or Fox from this at all. I think they also have the sirens and the lights blasting and blaring at us. So I think we need to tone it all down and not be trained to expect the worst all the time. This is America. We'll get through this as we have gotten through every major challenge. This isn't the Civil War. This isn't the Spanish flu. This isn't Nazi Germany. And it's not a billion or more radical Islamists. We will get through this. But we don't have to surrender First Amendment rights, freedom of travel, freedom of work, and we don't have to do what James Madison told us we shouldn't do, which is treat every state the same way. I want to return to the point we were making earlier. Utah is not New York. Heck, California, more populous than New York, doesn't have the problems New York is having.
They don't. It's amazing. So I guess the plea to people would be, as you point out, and you write, just look at the numbers, look at everything rationally, and let's reclaim a sense of proportion here, which I think is so very important, Seth.
Yeah. Thomas Friedman, not someone I agree with very much, very often, at the New York Times, had a really good column, quite frankly, talking about how we've been engaging in a horizontal strategy, which is, for lack of a better analogy, a scattershot or a blunderbuss. We need to have a vertical strategy. Maybe look at the populations that are most vulnerable, with the states or even municipalities that are most vulnerable. But, we don't need a policy and we don't need a system that treats a 25-year-old in Park City the way we would treat an 80-year-old in Manhattan. It's just not the way you work this thing. And by the way, it ain't good medicine either. No doctor would treat those two patients the same way.
Seth Leibson. He is Seth Leibson. He wrote an article in Real Clear Politics with Bill Bennett, the former Secretary of Education, talking about time for a second opinion.
I hope you liked that. We'll be right back.